Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, with the election 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Wow.
Do a little stop, look, and listen. How you feel about governor's race, other statewide races, congressional races, legislative races. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro. Answer line. Governor Spalding got a pro forma endorsement, but of course the press corps makes a big deal about it. Wonder if anybody in the press corps will have an opportunity to inquire with the former president about Pritzker's purge law and whether he agrees with it. This is what former President Obama had to say.
Illinois will always hold a special place in my heart. You believed
Especially
in me
from a
before
distance.
anyone else did. And you believed in J.B. Pritzker, too. He's made Illinois a national leader on so many issues we care about. Raising the minimum wage, protecting voting rights, cracking down on the sale of illegal guns. JB also signed a landmark law protecting a woman's right to choose. That's why I'm proud to cast my ballot to re-elect JB Pritzker.
Is that voter fraud? Is he still an Illinois resident? Somebody can check on that?
They did fly in for a few hours and voted and then flew off. They didn't even stay in. Did they sell that house?
He's right about J.B. Pritzker putting us in the pole position on a number of issues, including, as we found out last week from our friends at WirePoint, number one in the nation when it comes to unemployment. Illinois has the highest unemployment rate in the nation. Does that square with all these turnaround commercials you see from J.B. Pritzker? We have the worst credit rating in the nation, so we're number one when it comes to the worsts. Right. Worst credit rating, worst unemployment, highest combined state and local tax burden, and he wanted to make it higher, except you rejected his graduated income tax proposal. That's the J.B. record, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it is. That's not a question.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro. Answer line 64636. Type in DA, then a quick comment.
And when it comes to the purge law, which, by the way, as Mike Scott's reported, the cases have been now consolidated. 58 state's attorneys, 58 of the state's 102 county state's attorneys, filed suits individually. Their suits have been consolidated and will be heard in a Kankakee County. Will be heard by Kankakee County judge. 58 state's attorneys. That's more than half for those of you doing math in your head. And 100 of 102 who opposed the purge law. That's also more than half. That includes 24 Democrats. 58 filed suits saying the law is unconstitutional. They want a declaration that the law is unconstitutional. They want it enjoined from implementation Jan 1. And there's good reason why they do. We did a little look-see on this. You know, you've heard from Jim Glasgow. You've heard from other state's attorneys. You've heard from Gary Caruana up in Winnebago County, the sheriff there, and other sheriffs about the number of prisoners that will be released from the county jails were this to be implemented. So we looked at this. There's about 17,500 inmates in county jails in Illinois. And based on the estimates you're getting from county state's attorneys, who have a pretty good idea what their jail population is, as do the sheriffs, for obvious reasons. You know, one is in charge of housing them, and the other is in charge of bringing them to trial, in most cases. You're talking about almost 9,000 inmates would be released on January 1.
9,000? Oh, Pritzker keeps saying, oh, no, not one's going to be released.
And if it's,
these are just right-wing extremists.
And if he does, it's on the prosecutors. And Jim Glasgow, and I've got a commercial up to that point, he was on this show, and he said that's just obviously not true. That's just obviously not true, and it has nothing to do with the prosecutors and everything to do with Pritzker's purge law, the statute.
The prosecutors have to follow the letter of the law, and that's what the law says. Unless they amend it, that they said that would happen in the veto session after the November election. But man up. If you're going to make changes, what are you going to make?
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not.
You've heard from the leading lights of the left, like House Speaker Chris Welch. They are champions of this. They are cheerleading. Cam Buckner, state rep who's running for governor, cheerleading this. The Black Caucus is not walking this back. And so no one else will either. you're deluding yourself as much as those who are deluding themselves and saying, oh, this is just about letting nonviolent offenders out. Listen to the state's attorneys. They're Democrats. The one featured in my ads, all Democrats. Justin Hood, who wrote the letter on behalf of the Illinois State Attorneys Association for the 100 of the 102 that opposed it, he's a Democrat. Jim Glasgow in Will County is a Democrat. And the myth of the nonviolent offender, really good piece by Devon Kurtz over at City Journal. He's a public safety policy director at the Cicero Institute. The hard truth for criminal justice reformers, and by the way, he is one. The hard truth is that violent offenses are far more prevalent among America's prisoners. At the state level, where 9 in 10 prisoners are incarcerated, almost 60% of inmates committed violent crimes. 143,000 people convictions related to sexual assault, 155,000 homicide, combined with 146 for all drug crimes related. And by the way, just because it's only a drug crime doesn't mean that they're not more serious offenses that you have previously been charged with, that you may be charged with because, for example, you're a known gangbanger. The idea that America's mass incarceration is a result of drug crimes is absurd, writes Devon Kurtz. Oh, by the way, for the criminal justice reformers, and that is a misnomer, they are not reformers. They're lawless ideologues. They're defund, decarcerate ideologues. America's incarceration problem relates directly to its violent crime problem. The nation's incarceration rate is 4 to 6 times higher than that of its high-income peers in Europe and Asia. Oh, that's really concerning. Until you note that, oh, by the way, America's homicide rate is 7.5 times higher than those same peer nations in Europe and Asia. So, again, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish people could be released on their own recognizance for carjackings and kidnappings and second-degree murder, and they're going to show up for court on their own good because of their own good character, and they're not going to commit other crimes while their trial date is pending. I wish that were the case. It is not the case. You're seeing it play out in New York right now. They've got a year and a half worth of data, and their no cash bail law is much less lax than Pritzker's. Doesn't go nearly as far as Pritzker's purge law. I mean, 9,000 inmates released on January 1, 7,600 in Cook County alone. You don't think that's going to have an impact on public safety? Do you not look at a news outlet? And I'm not talking about the ones I'm affiliated with. Pick one, anyone. This is not a close call. And as I've said, the civilization is on the ballot. You vote to reelect Pritzker. I don't care what your position is on abortion or green energy. You vote to reelect J.B. Pritzker. You are voting for end times, as Jim Glasgow says. You are voting for lawlessness. People will be murdered and maimed who otherwise wouldn't have been if you had the simple act of holding violent criminals over for trial, in addition to the other absurd elements of the Safety Act that put police even further on their hind legs than they already are.
I mean, everything that's happening in the city is going to come to the suburbs and the rest of the state.
Well,
we had an 18-year-old who was shot by an off-duty Chicago police officer. He and 2 others tried to carjack her on Thursday. Well, guess what? He was out on bond for allegedly driving another hijacked car last August.
Goes on and on. DuPage projection based on the state's attorney's estimates is more than 500 inmates would be released. Same in Lake, more than 600 in Will, 300 in
Winnebago County.
300 and some, 350 some odd in Kane, 275 in McHenry. Go on and on and on. You don't think that's going to have an impact? These are all moms who stole diapers for their babies? I don't think so. Nobody thinks so, except J.B. Pritzker. Tom in Richmond, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, I received in the mail a little 5 by 10 inch leaflet. One side says Lake County Gazette, as a meter pointing to false.
Yeah.
The other side have these quotes from some radio station in Peoria, like they're the vial of truth, saying convicted criminals currently in jail will not be released. The Safety Act does not contain non-detainable offenses. This is pure propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And any money you have left to send out a response to this with quotes from these state's attorneys and the number you just listed with the, 9,000 that are going to be released?
Yeah.
This makes my blood boil that this kind of stuff is getting, and it's from the Democrat Party of Illinois.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm very familiar with it. Thanks for the call, Tom. And that has been put out into the ether and will continue to be till November 8th. Multiple commercials running now, newspapers, radio ads, billboards, teletown halls, every digital platforms, every communication channel that is available has been filled. Maybe not with the $145 million that J.B. Pritzker is spending, but with a significant enough amount of money to drive home the message to anybody who's paying attention and interested to understand it. And
if you want control of your children's lives on another, ancillary issue, he will not discuss whether or not he's going to put COVID-19 vaccinations on child immunization records so that your kid could go to school.
Yeah,
that's a big deal. And then also the question too, well, if he does pass it, does that mean an annual one? Or is it similar to the measles where you're one shot and you're done, or chickenpox? I mean, there's so many unanswered questions. And he ran from the media.
Just like having to pass the Safety Act to find out what's in it, you have to vote for J.B. Pritzker to find out what he's going to do.
With your with your kids.
As somebody texted me, schools are closed. He locks the schools and he opens the jails. That's the J.B. Pritzker record after 4 years.
That's good.
Colleen in Plainfield.
Hi, Dan and Amy. You guys had a caller, I don't know, a month or two ago that literally haunts me because he was talking about some relative or something that was passing a petition to, I think it was against the Safety Act. And he got into a discussion with him about, well, you're not going to vote for Pritzker because he's kind of like the master, involved in this. Do you remember that caller? And he couldn't flip him.
Yeah.
This morning?
Oh, he couldn't flip his friend. Yeah, right.
Couldn't flip his friend, and the friend was totally against the Safety Act, but was all in on Pritzker. Anyway,
right.
I had my own little experience with that, walking precincts in Plainfield this weekend. I was walking with a state rep candidate. I was walking with a judge candidate, and it was great because I had two very knowledgeable people who could take questions about the Safety Act right at the door. We encountered two first responders. The first one kept his, I know because I have the list, I know he's a softie, but I thought the way this guy was talking about the Safety Act, you wouldn't believe it. And in the end, I don't think he's with us. I think he was just kept this stuff very close to the vest, even though he was saying how it impacts his entire squad. The other first responder was detailing all he does is drugs. All he does is respond to overdoses. This is closer. He lives out here, but he worked closer to the city. This guy was definitely with us, but he started talking about pensions and how he can't totally trust the Republicans on pensions. And I thought, this state, it's just dunzos, because here's people on the front lines who are, they're maybe moving, but they're still entrenched. I don't know. I just wanted to share that on the ground info.
Thanks for that, Colleen, because I had a conversation with a firefighter over the weekend, too, and it's infuriating.
What he said?
It's infuriating to listen to the, I can't trust Republicans. These firefighters, a lot of tough talk, a lot of we're with you. I can't trust the Republicans on pensions. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with any firefighter or cop who says that? Are you that dense? Do you not have the ability to listen and process information? I'm talking to you, firefighters and cops, who give me that pension rap. What the hell is wrong with you? Everybody, and I've been talking about this for 20 years, every single free market reform type like me or the Illinois Policy Institute or Wire Points has said the same damn thing about your precious defined benefit pensions. So lift it up. My God, your safety and the safety of your men and women you work with is on the line. What the hell is wrong with you? No one has said, no one, that there'll be any clawing back of benefits earned for anyone. What does it take to penetrate the granite between the ears of these rank and file? I understand the leadership are political hacks and they're transactional. I get it. You will get the benefits you earned. You should, because the state made a promise. It created a reliance. That's a contractual obligation, even if it was a bad promise. It's the right thing to do. Do you hear me? That's the position. Now, on a go-forward basis, since, oh, by the way, the people you trust so much have your pension funds at less than 25% funded, you clowns, death spiraling pensions. And by the way, when you're not getting 7 and 10 and 12% return in the market, the spiral increases in pace. Wait to see what it looks like when the COVID cash washes away and you see the market's down 25% this year. On a prospective basis, we have to have a conversation about time not yet put in, work not yet done, and what a benefits package should reasonably look like. Go ahead and pass your Amendment 1. Go ahead and pass it. The constitutional provisions, state statute, they're not suicide pacts. They are not invulnerable to math. So go ahead. You don't want to have a prospective conversation? That's what you say. That's why I can't trust? Nonsense. You should be ashamed of yourself. Any cop or firefighter who you know says that should be ashamed of themselves, and you should tell them. It's the most ridiculous cop-out, pun intended, when it comes to voting for these people who've destroyed everything in this state, including the stability of your precious pensions. What the hell is wrong with you? Melissa in Naperville, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, I think you've really offered some very effective arguments. However, the ground game of the Republican Party in DuPage County and Northern Wilkes County, in particular Ann Stava Murray's seat, has been abysmal and pathetic. It would have been so easy to turn over multiple high-profile seats in Naperville. And these candidates have not been given the support on social media or on the ground. And you can argue and argue and argue, and Jim Glasgow can get up on his podium and talk, but if you don't effectively market your candidates and get out the word, it's worthless.
Thanks for the call, Melissa. And if you want to run screaming off a cliff, there's no amount of money that can be spent to stop you. If you want to run screaming off a cliff, if you want to ignore all of the data, if you want to not listen to anyone who's actually an expert in their field who knows what they're talking about, especially when it is bipartisan and overwhelming. If you don't want to listen to people, then don't listen to them. What can I tell you? Don't make me do it. I can't stop you. I can't stop you. If I give you the key to the jailhouse door and you want to go open it, then go open it. James in Schaumburg.
Dan, you're on fire this morning, brother. You are on fire. You're speaking my language right now. And I wish to God, when the previous caller just mentioned the abysmal campaigning, I want Bailey to win. I want all these people to win. Why doesn't Bailey hold a press conference right there in Daly Center today, spouting exactly what you said? He can put it his own way, but the passion that you just spoke with is all he needs. He's got to carry the message. The amount of money and the amount of ground game is irrelevant to the message you're carrying. Carry a good message. speak directly to what you have. You have callers on day in, day out. Sean's got them in the afternoon. Just the guests that are speaking the truth to what is actually happening in the state. Our loved ones some of our own family are going to get hurt or killed or maimed. It's going to happen. They're going to shut down the schools again. He's going to start with the vaccine mandates. All Bailey has to do is list all the abhorrent things that JB has done while he's been in office. Just list them. He doesn't have to comment on them. Just remind everybody of all the horrific things he did. They had police officers manning the beaches at North Avenue Beach to prevent people from going to the beach. Everybody forgot that? I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. And it's on the firefighters that you're talking about. I'm in and out of fire stations all the time. And that is the same mantra. And reasonably intelligent people are spouting that garbage about how they can't trust Republicans. They can't trust their friends. It's like the trees constantly voting for the axe because the axe told them because he has a wood handle, he's one of them.
That's good.
Thanks, James.